Welcome back. Humanitarian aid agency, the Gift of the Givers, is waiting for a final green light to travel to Gaza to assist with relief efforts there. Last week, the World Food Programme estimated that 150,000 people in the region were in urgent need of assistance. Now, SABC News will accompany the Gift of the Givers to the region. Today in studio, we are joined by Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman, founder of the Gift of the Givers. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Morning. Thank you.
Just give us an update on the latest. I understand that we're waiting for the Egyptian government to get back to us and give us a heads up as to whether we can go in and you guys can start with the relief efforts.
Yes, I approached international relations last week Monday. It was 9:10 at night. They were preparing for the budget speech. And amazingly, in 30 minutes we got a response. Tuesday we got another call from them to say this is a government priority. The president has mentioned it. The ministers have mentioned it. Gaza is a priority. We're going to help. On Wednesday, they called me to say, on Thursday, you'll have more updates. Thursday, they called me in. They called the Egyptian ambassador in. They sent our ambassador in Egypt to the Egyptian government. And our ambassador on Saturday in Ramallah spoke to the Palestinian Authority. On Monday, it was Eid. And Durko followed me up. And I keep making this joke. Normally, I have to run after Durko. This time, they're running after me. You know, they really on the case. They're amazing. I must thank them. They're doing a great job. And they're waiting for information. And that's why last night, all my teams got together in Johannesburg, because they need itemized, the list of what's going on the planes. And we were sitting with that last night.
Now, we're waiting for the Egyptian government. Just tell us what the expectation is from the Egyptian government on your part. When do you expect things to happen, the green light to go ahead, and also what the doctors would be doing right now while they're waiting in Egypt?
Well, the doctors are not in Egypt yet. From past experience, we know, and from other medical teams that went before us, quite a few of them during the first 2 weeks, stood at the border, couldn't get in, and had to go back home. And some people, by the time they got permission to get in, their days of leave were over. So they spent like 24 hours or 48 hours inside after waiting for about 10 or 12 days. So that's a waste. In terms of the Egyptian government, they said this is the blueprint. They gave us a paper and said you've got to follow all these rules. So Durko is working on it, and the condition is it has to come from the government of the country where the aid agency resides. So it has to be done through Durko. So Durko is the front member now, doing all that kind of stuff, and and we're trying to adhere to all those rules. And that comes through, of course, then we wait for them to say, now what is the problem for us to go through? But there's multiple facets to this. A medical team, a search and rescue team, a media team, an ambulance, medical equipment, medical supplies, and also supplies from other agencies in the world that have sent stuff on our name that's stuck in the airport in Cairo, which we also want to put as part of this list.
2 weeks ago on the show, we had the doctors just before when they were about to leave or getting ready. You had 75 medical staff at that time who volunteered. The number of volunteers I see have expanded over the last week or so. It seems as if there's no shortage of people who are willing to stop their lives to make a contribution.
It's more than 120 yesterday, and it's still climbing all the time. And what's amazing, these are very highly skilled specialists will be ideal in this situation. Who do you take and who do you leave behind? I mean, they are committed, they are dedicated. But also we must give recognition to the non-medical volunteers. With no exaggeration, I can fill 3 plane loads of non-medical volunteers who want to go to Gaza to do something.
That's incredible. It just shows that the human spirit will triumph in the end over all adversity. Wanted to ask you about the information that you're finding on the ground now. What is the expectation once you get the green light? What will you be faced with? And also, what would be the needs of the civilians in the Gaza Strip?
Well, we are inside Gaza at the moment. From the day one, within 12 hours of the bombing, we've been supplying medical supplies that we could buy in Gaza and food that we could buy in Gaza. But that's limited. And also, it's not everything that you require for this situation. This is critical. They need medical teams because the doctors are washed off their feet. They're finished. They're exhausted. Secondly, the emotional and the psychological trauma, what the doctors are faced with. They need highly specialized equipment. And they need search and rescue teams. People are caught under the rubble. It's anxiety. Unlike other situations, here Israel is deliberately targeting hospitals, deliberately targeting schools, deliberately targeting civilians. One example, one lady that I work with has been to South Africa. She is doing the distribution for me on my behalf. In the last week, I told her, Allah, how's it going with the distribution? She said the first few days was fine, but now it's very difficult. I said, why? She said, Khadija went around to give out food to the people, as you asked. I said, who is Khadija? She said, Khadija works with us. So I said, what happened? She said she had a big yellow shirt on, big bright light saying humanitarian worker. She went in an ambulance. She was giving out food, and Israel struck the ambulance directly. So I said, what happened to Khadija? She said she's dead. So she said, like this, so many of our workers have been targeted. So it becomes very complicated. We even said, as a backup, we will use the UN school to put up a field hospital inside the UN school. How many schools have been targeted?
The UN school has been bombed overnight.
There's no security.
It seems.
And the hospital, Al-Shifa, we had worked there before. That thing got hit. So where do you put the people?
That's incredible and very scary to hear that that's the level of assault on the civilian population within Gaza. Finally, Doctor, I wanted to ask you the plight of the people in Gaza. How do they, if they want to evacuate and move out, how do they do that? Because both sides, the border posts are closed. How do you escape from what the pictures that I see, these massive bomb blasts, from hell, really?
No, there's no escape. Same lady, Allah. She sends me a Twitter, this WhatsApp message, on the day of the invasion. She says, we are leaving our house now. It's now an empty house. And we are homeless, although we have a house. We have to move away because it's getting too dangerous here. We are going to a safer place in Gaza. So I asked, what is safer in Gaza? She said, no, there is no safe place in Gaza, but we are going to a safer place. And the areas where they went to, there's 220,000 refugees. And where they moved to, that's where the bombs are coming now, where the people are supposed to be in a safe place.
That's really incredible. It's really incredible to hear that humanitarian aid workers are being targeted by the Israeli military in Gaza, and that the people are really between a rock and a hard place. There's nowhere to go. They have to dodge the bombs, it seems.
The only conflict in the world, there is no border to escape through. The only conflict in the world, you are stuck all around. You cannot go anywhere. 1.8 million people, 47 kilometers long, 12 kilometers wide. The largest concentration camp on earth that's being bombed and people are being exterminated.
And it seems as if every square inch of Gaza is being bombed, or the plan is to bomb every square inch of the strip by the looks of it.
Well, there's nothing much left there. You know, and remember, building material is not allowed into Gaza. So how are they going to build their homes again? Oxygen, life-saving oxygen is not allowed into Gaza. How are they going to breathe and survive in hospitals? Power plants are knocked out. There's no generators, there's no fuel. How do you do operations? People are going to die in hundreds.
Dr. Suleiman, it's really a heart-wrenching story you're telling us this morning, and really difficult to try and understand the situation that these people are in. But thank you for joining us and giving us this kind of insight. It's a much worse crisis than I think we even in the media are reporting on. We report on numbers, and those numbers never really hit home. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That is Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman, who's the founder of Gift of the Givers, giving us a little insight as to what is happening in Gaza. All I can say is that anger breeds more anger. Hate breeds more hate. It's time for us to look at what are the alternatives. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the World Food Programme has estimated that 150,000 people in the region were in need of urgent food assistance. SABC News will accompany the Gift of the Givers organisation to the region.
Emergency food aid. Hundreds of thousands of Gazans are in dire need. It's aid the Gift of the Givers is hoping will go a long way to assist the Palestinian people.
People in Palestine want closure. They want their children that are under the rubble. They want to bury them. They want to put them in the grave. And that's why we thought that we can serve a purpose by taking the search and rescue teams in to help find bodies and to hopefully find live people also. So it's ambulance, medical team, search and rescue team, medical equipment, search and rescue equipment, medical supplies other than medicines, and medicines.
Things easily taken for granted like bottled water and canned foods are part of the consignment. Well, this organisation is used to moving into conflict zones, but many are emotional about this particular trip.
As a doctor, but also as a father, I mean, I've got 3 children, and we're looking at the pictures that where the kids are affected. I think there's no one that's not touched by what's happening.
As the conflict rages on, homes and hospitals have been targeted. Despite calls for a permanent ceasefire to allow negotiations, rockets continue to light up the Gaza skies.
People are being targeted, being shot in the head. This is a massacre. مجازر لا يمكن وصفها.
Calls are mounting for an end to the hostilities, and times are desperate. In Gaza, ordinary civilians are crying out for help. The South African medics are hoping to be in the region next week. Criselda Lewis, SABC News in Johannesburg.